people that waited in line just to share this experience of Venom, Candyman, Night of the Living Dead, The Rock, Final Destination. But I want you to know you are now entering the
Cinema
Chop Shop with a top and the pop boom boom bop.
The Cinema Chop Shop.
What's going on, everybody? It's Davey from the 80s, and you're now entering the Cinema Chop Shop, so park your ass right there. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the like, the share, and the subscribe button. And today, I'm here today to review the Thunderbolts, the MCU's version of the Suicide Squad, basically. Now, here's the thing. When it comes to the MCU, I am one of the biggest critics. I'm harsh on the MCU. I'm harsh on superhero films just in general. Why? Because they become too repetitive. They become too cookie cutter. They become too copy and paste. And I am here to say that this movie right here, The Thunderbolts, might be one of the most underrated MCU movies to date. Honestly, I went into this movie with good expectations on my mind. Why? Because this didn't really feel like the same MCU type of film. It's an underdog. I went into it thinking that, you know, a lot of people weren't going to watch it because it's not really one of those big name MCU films. And usually those are the ones that have the best qualities to them. Why? Because it doesn't have the weight of the world resting on its shoulders. You get what I'm saying? And honestly, this movie, it delivered. So we find, and again, a lot of this stuff is shown in the trailer, so it's not like I'm giving any spoilers. So you have Black Widow's sister, Yelena, I believe her name is, and she's going through a hard time, and she gets this case, and she's sent to this location to do a job. Now she ends up running into a bunch of other Black Op representatives, where we have John Walker, we have Ghost, and then we have Taskmaster, right? And they're all sent to do a job, and essentially is to kill each other. But something happens, and then they're introduced to the homie Bob, who's Sentry, right? And if you know anything about Sentry, you know Sentry is an OP-ass character, and that's the one thing that I was worried about this movie. Sentry's OP as shit. So I was wondering, how are these street-level characters going to defeat Sentry? I had an idea how the way they're going to do it, and they basically kind of went about it that way, and it's the only way that made sense. So I'm kind of glad they went that route, because if they would have did it any other route, you would have nerfed Sentry, and basically you would have kind of obliterated whatever possible outcomes you had in the MCU where you could have used this character. So I'm glad they went the way that they went. Now, what do I mean by this is one of the most underrated movies? One, it balances being funny and being entertaining very well. This feels like a more action-packed movie. Honestly, to be honest with you, I'm gonna say this shit. I'm gonna say it for real. If this movie would have been rated R, this probably would have been an A+ movie. My grade is high, but it's not an A+ movie. And I'm gonna tell you why. I think if they would have been able to buy into the idea, because you have all these Black Op representatives, and you have these fight sequences, and you have these people who are not afraid to kill. And, you know, people die in this movie, but at the same time, when you have them kind of afraid to show the kills, you could have kind of went John Wickish with this shit. You could have kind of went the Raid with this, you know? And if they would have went like that, I think that would have added a whole new layer to this movie that would have put it up there, you know? I think that if the MCU wasn't owned by the mouse, and they would have had the balls to actually go rated R, I think this would have added an extra layer to this movie that would have made it a little bit more entertaining, you know? But it was entertaining as is, so I'm not taking anything away from it, but it would have been even more entertaining. So, story-wise, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, it's not much of a story you can tell with these characters. These characters, we don't have much of a story to tell. But I was surprised. The story that they did tell, to me, was really compelling. You know, you have all of these people who are essentially like throwaways. You know, they're people that done bad shit, and people that have to live with the bad shit, and they're okay with continuing doing bad shit, but you can tell that they just yearn for a little bit more. And you have them on this quest to kind of like this redemption arc, you know, and then it also explores like deep, dark feelings about yourself, you know, like the bad feelings that we all have every once in a while. So I really feel like it did a good job at being funny. balancing some truth shit. And it's one of the more better balanced MCU films. MCU films always try to add this extra layer of emotion to it, and it feels so fake, so forced. And this one really felt authentic. Like, you know, you had Black Widow's sister really leading the campaign on this movie. This is kind of like her movie, and it wasn't a bad idea to go her route. She's one of the characters that really has she's one of the best actresses, you know, on the roster. But on top of that, she has a compelling story that we've kind of been into and interested in since we saw the Black Widow movie. So we've been kind of interested in where she's gonna go and how they're gonna handle her character, because you could tell that the MCU's been pumping her up to be more, and now it was her opportunity to do so. Now, the one critique that I do have about this movie is where they're gonna go after this movie. So the movie basically transitions, and it tells you what direction they're going to go with these characters, with this team, and I'm not really for that. I'll kind of get into a little spoiler part at the end of at the end of this review, in order to kind of go into more depth in that. Also, the end credit scene is one of those that you might want to go check out, because, it has a really big tie-in to one of the more look forward to MCU films, and we'll talk about that a little later in the spoiler half of this. But again, I feel like this movie was, for a 2-hour movie, it didn't feel like a 2-hour movie. And as much as I don't like Red Guardian, he was actually pretty damn entertaining in this movie. Like, I despise Red Guardian. Like, him and freaking Black Widow annoyed the shit out of me. But in this movie, his banter was kind of cool. It kind of worked. It was funny. You know, it kind of went with he was able to cut the tension a lot. And also, the dynamic between him and Yelena and shit, it really worked out for them. So I think he was essential, because at first when they casted him, I was like, yo, you know, I could deal without it. Like, you know, I really don't like him. They could have went with Abomination. They could have went with a whole lot of people, and they didn't. So it's like, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed by him being added, but now him being added makes sense because it added more depth to the story. And again, I like the way they handled Sentry. I like the way that they handled the conclusion of Sentry's arc. You know, and I think that the movie was well-rounded all the way through to the end. Now, it's not an A+ movie, right? But I think it's damn near close. I think this is easily a B+ movie. I had a lot of fun with it. I wasn't bored. It flowed really well, and it's one of the better MCU movies that have come out in the past couple of years. This is one of the better MCU projects, like, seriously, hands down. And I love these little low-key, under-the-radar movies. Like I said, they always overachieve. And this is definitely one of those MCU movies that overachieve. It did a lot better than what people are expecting. I hope it does well in the box office, because honestly, I feel like this movie needs to be praised. It needs to be seen. And I feel like it's actually a good damn movie, you know, because not only is the action good, but it has a compelling story. Now, again, I already gave you my grade. I think this is easily a B+ movie. I would definitely recommend to go watch it, but I'm going to get into some spoilers real quick. So if you have not seen the movie, and I'm about to talk some spoilers, so you might want to go ahead and dip out. Don't forget the like, share, and subscribe button before you head out. Now, let's get into these spoilers, though. So, one, Taskmaster dying fast as hell. That was one of the most disrespectful shits I've ever seen in my life. Motherfucker didn't even make it to the second act or the third act. And that was such a wasted character. I was like, why did you even put this person on a promotional poster if she was just going to get smoked in the head by Ghost? Now, I thought possibly that it was just going to be like, okay, well, maybe she'll get reanimated or some shit at the end of the story. And that didn't happen. Motherfucker got popped, and that was it. Like, literally, wasted character. Pointless to put in a damn movie. That was so disrespectful. Now, maybe this will transition into us getting a legit Taskmaster, which a lot of people didn't like the Taskmaster that we had. You know, a lot of people felt like it was, like, very woke and very agenda-based. But maybe this will transition into us getting a legit Taskmaster. That's just my opinion. Another thing that I didn't like is the fact that they are the new Avengers. I feel like they kind of dropped the ball on this. Now, I get it. You know, the Thunderbolts has to have Thunderbolt Thaddeus Ross or whatever, Thunderbolt Ross. So I get why they didn't call them the Thunderbolts. I feel like there should have been a transition into them becoming the Thunderbolts, because this is not an Avengers-esque team. You know what I'm saying? This is like the team that you send in to do like the grunt work. This is the team that you send in to like take down like, you know, street level threats or things like that. You know, you send them to do the grimy shit. kind of like the Suicide Squad. You know, you send them to do like the little blackout missions. I think that this would have fit them perfectly. I don't see them really like, you know, in the Avengers-esque territory. I really think they should have stepped with the Thunderbolts. So them being renamed at the end of New Avengers, I felt like that kind of took away from them. I feel like it hurt them more than it added anything to it. Now, you obviously see them being called the New Avengers. You know that Sam is supposedly fighting them for the, you know, the name of the Avengers. So I think that Sam is going to create the Young Avengers with Spider-Man and all the other younger characters, like America, whatever her name is, and so on and so forth. He's going to create a team with that group of individuals. But Sentry. I already knew that they were going to talk him. They were going to have to talk him down. And again, I respect it. I completely 100% respect them going into his head and having that conversation with him and talking him down and working through his own trauma. I think it works. It worked for him and it worked for the storyline. And I think it was real. It was real authentic. So shout outs to them for doing that. The Fantastic Four thing. Now, honestly, this is telling me clearly where they're going in the next MCU phase. I think Galactus is going to fucking destroy the Fantastic Four's world, and that's why they're coming here. That's the only thing that makes sense. They somehow time travel and they come to another universe. Maybe they're trying to save it from being destroyed by Galactus. Who knows? But with that being said, their world's getting destroyed. So I think at the end of the movie, their world is cooked. So there's that. But I'm not really even looking forward to Fantastic Four. That's definitely a movie that I'm going to skip. And it's crazy that I'm saying that Thunderbolts is one of the... I think this is probably the only damn superhero movie that I'm looking forward to this year. I forgot which other ones are on the roster. I know Superman is on it. Don't care. I know... damn, what else is on the roster? Fantastic Four is on the roster. I don't care. You know, there's those superhero movies that are on the roster right now. I really don't give a shit about. But this was on my radar strictly because of like the underratedness. But damn, dude, they did Taskmaster dirty. But that's just how I feel. But let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about this movie. I honestly think it was low-key one of the better fucking MCU movies. It's honestly one of the better movies since fucking Eternals, dude. Like, it's hands down one of the better ones. You know, it knew what it was, it knew what it wanted to do, and it could have honestly been upgraded by a little bit of extra bloodshed. Taskmaster getting popped in the head and seeing the blood, I was like, oh, damn. That made me feel like maybe they should have just went the whole route. But they did Taskmaster dirty. Honestly, I didn't think that was going to be it. I felt like Taskmaster should have probably died doing something a little bit more noble than just like getting sneak attacked by Ghost and popped in the head. But, you know, it is what it is. Ghost is like, I like Ghost. I've always felt like Ghost should have been utilized more because she was one of the better components of the Ant-Man movie that didn't really get utilized. So it's really cool that we're seeing a lot of characters that don't really get utilized in MCU movies and they get utilized now. I'm happy that this movie went to theaters versus being released on TV. So yeah, so will we finally get an actual Thunderbolts movie with Thunderbolt Ross and shit like that? Maybe. But I feel like it's going to be kind of tampered with because of this movie being called the Thunderbolts, you know? So I don't know. Maybe they'll branch off and eventually just kind of form their own shit. Who knows? I really don't know what to say. But them being the new Avengers, I feel like it was kind of weak. I feel like it didn't really go with them. That's just my opinion. But anyway, let me know in the comment section down below what do you guys think. Do you guys agree or disagree, whatever the case may be. Drop it in the comment section down below and make sure you hit the like, the share, the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time. Adios.
I want to play a game. Subscribe now. The choice is yours. You're now exiting the cinema chop shop.